Prophecy of Monsters, written by Clarke Ashton Smith, narrated by Edward E. French. The change occurred before he could divest himself of more than his coat and scarf. He had only to step out of the shoes, to shed the socks with 2 backward kicks, and shuffle off the trousers from his lean hind legs and belly. But he was still deep-chested after the change, and his shirt was harder to loosen. His hackles rose with rage as he slewed his head around and tore it away with hasty fangs in a flurry of falling buttons and rags. Tossing off the last irksome ribbons, he regretted his haste. Always heretofore he had been careful in regard to small details. The shirt was monogrammed. He must remember to collect all the tatters later. He could stuff them in his pockets and wear the coat buttoned loosely on his way home when he had changed back. Hunger snarled within him, mounting from belly to throat, from throat to mouth. It seemed that he had not eaten for a month of months. Raw butcher's meat was never fresh enough. It had known the coldness of death and refrigeration, and had lost all vital essence. Long ago there had been other meals, warm and sauced with still spurting blood. But now the thin memory merely served to exasperate his ravening. Chaos raced within his brain. Inconsequently, for an instant, he recalled the first warning of his malady, preceding even the distaste for cooked meat, the aversion, the allergy to silver forks and spoons. It had soon extended to other objects of the same metal. He had cringed even from the touch of coinage, had been forced to use paper and refuge change. Steel, too, was a substance unfriendly to beings like him, and the time came when he could abide it little more than silver. What made him think of such matters now, setting his teeth on edge with repugnance, choking him with something worse than nausea? The hunger returned, demanding swift appeasement. With clumsy pads he pushed his discarded raiment under the shrubbery, hiding it from the heavy-jowled moon. It was the moon that drew the tides of madness in his blood and compelled the metamorphosis. But it must not betray to any chance passer the garments he would need later when he returned to human semblance after the night's hunting. The night was warm and windless, and the woodland seemed to hold its breath. There were, he knew, other monsters abroad in that year of the 21st century. The vampire still survived, subtler and deadlier, protected by man's incredulity. And he himself was not the only lycanthrope. His brothers and sisters ranged unchallenged, preferring the darker urban jungles, while he, being country-bred, still kept the ancient ways. Moreover, there were monsters unknown as yet to myth and superstition. But these, too, were mostly haunters of cities. He had no wish to meet any of them, and of such meeting surely there was small likelihood. He followed a crooked lane, reconnoitered previously. It was too narrow for cars, and it soon became a mere path. At the path's forking, he ensconced himself in the shadow of a broad, mistletoe-blotted oak. The path was used by certain late pedestrians who lived even farther out of town. One of them might come along at any moment. Whimpering a little, with the hunger of a starved hound, he waited. He was a monster that nature had made, ready to obey nature's first commandment. Thou shalt kill and eat. He was a thing of terror, a fable whispered around prehistoric cavern fires, a miscegenation allied by later myth to the powers of hell and sorcery, but in no sense was he akin to those monsters beyond nature, the spawn of a newer and blacker magic, who killed without hunger and without malevolence. He had only minutes to wait, before his tensing ears caught the far-off vibration of footsteps. The steps came rapidly nearer, seeming to tell him much as they came. They were firm and resilient, tireless and rhythmic, telling of youth or of full maturity, untouched by age. They told, surely, of a worthwhile prey, of prime lean meat and vital, abundant blood. There was a slight froth on the lips of the one who waited. He had ceased to whimper. He crouched closer to the ground for the anticipated leap. The path ahead was heavily shadowed. Dimly, moving fast, the walker appeared in the shadows. He seemed to be all that the watcher had surmised from the sound of his footsteps. He was tall and well-shouldered, swinging with a lithe sureness, a precision of powerful tendon and muscle. His head was a faceless blur in the gloom. He was hatless, clad in dark coat and trousers such as anyone might wear. His steps rang with the assurance of one who has nothing to fear, and has never dreamt of the crouching creatures of darkness. Now he was almost abreast of the watcher's covert. The watcher could wait no longer, but sprang from his ambush of shadow, towering high upon the stranger as his hind paws left the ground. His rush was irresistible, as always. The stranger toppled backward, sprawling and helpless as others had done, and the assailant bent to the bare throat that gleamed more enticingly than that of a siren. It was a strategy that had never failed, until now. The shock, the consternation that hurled him away from that prostrate figure and had forced him back upon teetering haunches. It was the shock, perhaps, that caused him to change again, swiftly resuming his human shape before his hour. As the change began, he spat out several broken lupine fangs, and then he was spitting human teeth. The stranger rose to his feet, seemingly unshaken and undismayed. He came forward in a rift of revealing moonlight, stooping to a half-crouch and flexing his beryllium steel fingers enameled with flesh-pink. What are you?" quavered the werewolf. The stranger did not bother to answer as he advanced, every synapse of the computing brain transmitting the conditioned message, translated into simplest binary terms.
Dangerous. Not human. Not human. Kill. Kill. Kill.
A Prophecy of Monsters, written by Clarke Ashton Smith. Edward E. French speaking. This audiobook reading is copyright 2019 by Edward E. French and EFI. All rights reserved. A copyright exists on all recordings issued by Edward E. French. Any unauthorized broadcasting, public performance, copying, or re-recording of these audiobooks in any manner whatsoever will constitute an infringement of such copyright. Editing, alteration, copying, or redistribution inconsistent with copyright laws is prohibited, whether by digital, electronic, or other means. Links may be used, provided that full and clear credit is given to Edward E. French, with appropriate and specific direction to the original content. The original content was posted here on the Fiction Fantastique channel, www.youtube.com/FrenchEdward06. You can also direct inquiries regarding this recording to Edward E. French's email, edwardfrench06@hotmail.com. Pleasant dreams.